Hello and welcome to Recap Master. This rich girl throws herself at a homeless man. Even indescribable things happened with him in her home and filmed this passionate moment. This rich young lady named April is not an indulgent woman, so why did she fall in love with the homeless man? April is a real lady of the house. Not only does her family own a manor house, even the school she went to was top-notch. April fell in love with a young man from another family when she was in college. They were a perfect match. After graduation, April got engaged to her boyfriend in front of her family and friends, but it was this marriage that left her confused. She always felt that something was missing. That day, April brought her two younger sisters to the amusement park. While the sisters were riding the roller coaster, April noticed the homeless man next to her. His muscles were so well developed and beautiful. And this man, Tyson, fell in love with April at first sight. In order to hit on April, he offered to invite April's two sisters to ride the roller coaster again. April saw right through his intentions. She decided to take her two sisters to leave early, but then Tyson stood up high and called out April's name. Because he had just picked up April's wallet, when April got her wallet back, Tyson playfully asked if the man in the wallet was April's husband. April didn't want to answer that question, but his sister was quick to say that it was their future brother-in-law. When April left with her sister, Tyson was still standing in the same spot with a lingering look on his face. It's obvious he's got a crush on this rich girl. Interesting. April came back to the amusement park later that night, but when Tyson tried to get closer, April inexplicably left. The next day, the whole family went out for a picnic. Even the housekeeper took a leave of absence. April was the only one left in the house. Suddenly April saw Tyson's dog. And she was shocked to see Tyson's dog. She was even more surprised when she came back to the house. There was a naked man in the bathroom. Yes, it was Tyson. Not only did he break into someone else's house, but he also complimented April on how good her body wash smelled. April was furious and wanted to kick him out, but when she saw Tyson's muscular body, she hesitated. Tyson said April is the most beautiful woman he has ever seen. His praises were like poetry. April was caught up in the intoxicating words. The flirtation reached its peak. April and Tyson had a passionate affair. And April, who is usually very ladylike, she allowed Tyson to film the scene. After Tyson left, she watched the footage over and over again. April couldn't believe that such a charming woman in the picture was herself. Tyson's presence seemed to reveal a different side of her. Absorbed in the beautiful image, April even ignored her fiancé's phone call. When she came to her senses, April was confused. She didn't know what the future held for her. So she reached out to her grandmother, who lived in another manor house. April told her grandmother that she thought her marriage was going too fast. It was as if Grandma had read April's mind. So Grandma promised her as long as April wore her wedding dress on her wedding day, April would inherit all the family assets and the house. No one would refuse such an attractive offer, of course. April agreed without hesitation. April didn't know that Grandma had given orders to the housekeeper right after she left. April knew she was about to get married, and even if she wasn't engaged, there was no way the family would allow her to marry a tramp. No matter how many reasons there were, April couldn't help but miss that muscular man. So she went to the amusement park once again. Here April met Tyson as she had hoped. But Tyson was already drunk. He asked April to buy him a drink. Seeing Tyson's rudeness, April turned away in anger. But then a girl suddenly called her to the truck. This girl's name was Patty. She was a friend of Tyson's. Patty drove the truck as fast as she could. April was terrified in the passenger seat. But she had to admit that Patty was a funny girl. She was different from all of April's friends. And that's how Patty and April became good friends. Patty was outgoing and bold. She encouraged April to let go of her so-called inhibitions and show her sexy side. And then Patty exchanged corsets with April. April did look even sexier in her sexy little halter. Meanwhile, the amusement park was in the midst of a thrill ride. Because most of the rides here are very old, and the owner just cared about making money and didn't have the sense to renovate them. The Ferris wheel suddenly malfunctioned during operation. The tourists on top were scared and screamed. Tyson, who realized this, rushed to the Ferris wheel with an axe. He was able to destroy the electrical box in time to prevent a huge accident. Then Tyson went to the owner in a rage. He told him to stop counting his money. The safety of the tourists is the most important thing. But the owner, who was obsessed with profit, didn't listen to the homeless man. Instead, he called out a couple of thugs and beat the crap out of Tyson. When Patty and April returned, Tyson's face was already bruised and swollen. And what's worse, when Tyson's dog rushed out to protect his master, they beat the dog to death. At that moment, Tyson felt his heart was broken. In the end, he buried the dog in a field with Patty and April by his side. To ease Tyson's emotions, they went to a bar together. In a place of drunkenness and lanterns after drinking, April completely let herself go. She and Patty were gyrating on the dance floor. The men in the bar were all over the place, staring at these two beauties. They were afraid they'd miss the action. Patty's a very good sport about it. When she came out of the bar, she left to give April and Tyson a chance. As you might expect, this night, the two of them arrived at the motel, and once again, they got down to the nitty-gritty. The whole thing was still very sweet. When April woke up the next day, she called her grandmother. She lied about staying at her best friend's house yesterday. But when she got back to the motel, she was instantly enraged by what she saw. The man she'd just had sex with was molesting the waitress. April was furious. She went up to Tyson and beat him up. Then they started a fight in the corridor. But as they did, they both laughed. Then they made up. They even flirted in front of everyone at dinner. April had never been so bold. But she felt she shouldn't be subordinate to a man. So in her excitement, she suddenly turned and left like a queen. Then a policeman found Tyson. The cop told him to dig his dog out of someone else's field. Tyson had no choice but to burn the dog's body. Before leaving, the old cop warned Tyson not to touch anyone he shouldn't. Of course Tyson knew who he was talking about. In order not to get into trouble, Tyson had no choice but to leave. After enjoying the passion and pleasure, April decided to start planning her wedding. Like all women, April wanted her wedding to be perfect and romantic, even if the groom wasn't the man she'd always wanted. But April had no idea. She saw Tyson once again at the wedding rehearsal. Tyson was topless and working as a laborer. The first time she saw Tyson, April became upset. She was no longer in the mood for wedding planning. All her attention was focused on Tyson. April's grandmother noticed it too, but she didn't want to interfere with the wedding preparations, so she quietly changed the subject and talked about her family's history. But April wasn't in the mood. All she could think about was her affair with Tyson. By the time the guests had left, April's room was filled with gifts. But she wasn't happy. That's when April noticed Tyson's message on the mirror. Tyson wanted to ask her out in the woods late at night. April thought long and hard about it and decided to pay Tyson off. After all, she's going to be someone else's bride tomorrow. Between a fortune and a bum, she chose the former. But when she offered her $5,000, Tyson simply refused. He was attracted to beautiful, sexy April, not cold, hard cash. But he also knew that April was getting married. So Tyson wasn't going to keep pestering April. After April's wedding, he would leave. April was touched by Tyson's sincerity. So she decided to say goodbye to Tyson on the eve of her wedding. Naturally, the two of them were passionate all night long. On the other hand, the fiancé was having a full-blown bachelor party. Unbeknownst to him, his bride was already lying on top of someone else's body. The next day April acted as if nothing had happened. She walked down the aisle in her grandmother's wedding dress. With family and friends watching, April finally had to make her final choice. As if she could see her hesitation, Grandma took the initiative to tell her Tyson would never bother her again, because she had already taken care of Tyson with her money. When she heard this, April got emotional. She knew that Tyson was not a person who loved money. Her grandma must have used extraordinary means on Tyson. But under her grandmother's firm gaze, April could only take one step towards the groom now. Meanwhile, the old butler was already aiming his gun at Tyson. And with a single shot, Tyson fell on the steering wheel of the car. But when the butler went to check the situation, Tyson suddenly got up and knocked him to the ground. It seems that this homeless man still has some skills. After that, the two of them had no contact with each other. In order to survive, Tyson started working in a restaurant. When he came home from work that day, he suddenly found someone in the bathroom. Then a sweet voice came from inside and praised Tyson's shower gel smells so good. This woman was, of course, April. She came back to Tyson like Tyson once broke into her heart, but it's worth noting April is wearing a wedding ring the size of a pigeon egg on her hand.